What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar, what data just came out that's very important, what you should be watching for as we approach tomorrow. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. So anyways, let's talk about the market. Let's talk about how things are looking thus far. SPY is currently down 0.18%. Very flat state for the most part. Nothing too significant happened. Tesla outperformed the market being up 0.27%. Most tickers were either red or green, very flat, very mixed day, with some ETFs looking a little bit weaker than before. However, I wouldn't necessarily turn way too bearish or way too bullish until we see a break. And for the most part, the market is quite indecisive so far. So I'm going to be breaking down what levels should you be watching for, what is likely to happen to these charts, and what they're suggesting in just a couple of minutes. But let's first talk about some data and what just happened today. So looking at data, everything came out as expected. As I mentioned earlier, everything was close to expectations except new home sales were like a little bit lower. But besides that, it was pretty decent data and the market was flat for the most part. For tomorrow, I just want to remind you all that we have the consumer confidence report coming out at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this could cause a shift in the markets alongside the manufacturing numbers from the Richmond Fed Index. And also, on top of all of this, we have a bunch of Fed speakers throughout the day. So they're going to be coming at different times. We have Waller kind of kicking it off. We have another one in the morning. Bowman, Barr, and just a couple more Fed speakers. So they could cause some moves here and there, but nothing too crazy. As of recent, the Fed is not causing anything too big unless Jerome Powell is speaking. And then we just have some manufacturing numbers and consumer confidence at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So watch for some volatility 30 minutes after market open. Now, when it comes to earnings, I just want to call out that there's nothing really coming out for Tuesday. It's very, very minor, just like Intuit, just a couple of others, very, very small earnings. For Wednesday, we have Footlocker, Dollar Tree, and a few others like Salesforce. I know a lot of people who play CRM. If you're interested in these tickers, you could be watching them, especially like Snow. And then for Thursday, we have TD Bank, we have Dell, Big Lots, and just a few others. Nothing too crazy except for like Dell. I think Dell is like the most significant one out of all of these, but that's pretty much it. And then as far as our fear and greed index goes, basically we're on greedy right now. We're getting very close to the extreme, not super far, not like exactly there either. But at the same time, it's important to note this because we're starting to see a shift in sentiment. The market's on extreme greed, super, super greedy. And this is, once again, not the best of things to be watching for because when the market hits these extremes, this tends to be when the market tops historically. Stock price strength is on greed right now. And then the put and call positioning is on extreme greed based off the amount of contracts we're seeing. So this is actually a red flag for the rally. When we tend to see this happen, this is like right before the market pulls back a bit. And that's because we started to see a lot of these puts. You guys could see the put ratio went down. The puts were being closed in the millions of contracts. And this is because we started to see more hedging. And this is what helps to fuel the short squeeze that we saw. So that's very important. Market is on extreme greed right now, and this tends to be what happens when the market's like in a topping process, at least historically. So be very careful, at least for now. Market volatility is neutral. Everything else is like pretty close to before. So once again, as the market becomes greedy, this is when you need to be very cautious, in my honest opinion. So now the question is, what's going on with the charts? What do I see happening? We're going to start off with SPY, then talk about Tesla after that. In the morning, I told you all to watch the 20 EMA, this green line right here on the 4-hour time frame. And as you can see, we did not break it, so we're not truly like more in favor of the bears right now. We also did not break and hold above like 455.5 or the high we made very close to the pre-market period, so it's very close to that. So we basically are not super bullish, we're not super bearish, we're just flat like a pancake, and nothing too significant happened, at least looking at today. Now, if we zoom out of the chart, you will notice that I'm going to go to the 4-hour time frame. On the 4-hour, you guys could ignore these white lines just for now. But we basically had this rising wedge, right? And it's looking like we might start breaking out of this, but we're not really getting like a typical clean break to the downside. Right now, we're kind of dropping in slow motion, and we're starting to form a flag right now. So SPY is starting to flag. This could be, bullish, or it could be bearish depending on which way we break. As of right now, we are still respecting this flag that's looking like a little bit more bearish, which suggests that there could be some downside coming. So what could happen is this. Let me just show you how this looks. we're going to likely do this for some time, right? Back and forth and back and forth. If we're bullish, we need to get a break like this. We need to break 456.5. If we break like that, then we could get one more push to the upside. But even if that's the case, I mean, if we do get a breakout like that, the RSI, especially on the 4 hour, would still, in my opinion, suggest that there's like a quadruple bearish divergence. It wouldn't really fix any of this. And the 4 hour is already like starting to turn bearish. So I find that a little bit less likely. If we do get one more break, though, this could just be like another fake out, like a bull trap before we come down. So I still wouldn't turn like super, super bullish if we get one more break to the upside. I just would not lean in that direction. I just want to let you know that just in case there's a fake out, watch this trend line right here, this white trend line on top. If we break out of that, then there could be one more push coming, but I'm not really favoring that for now. Now, if we're bearish, okay, what you want to watch for is us to kind of like shop like this, make our way down, and eventually break and test like 452. If that fails us, it's going to turn into like a potential head and shoulders. This could be like a left shoulder. This could be like the head, and then like a right shoulder could form here. Or we could just break down and it just starts sinking all the way down to those imbalances. And we turn a lot more bearish if that's the case. Which direction am I leaning in? Well, right now, the answer is I think that there's going to be downside coming, but we're not seeing confirmation of it yet. We have some technicals that suggest there's going to be a move to the downside. We had a slight red day today, so there's some progress, but there's no confirmation that we're breaking out in either direction. And right now, we're likely just going to continue to do this and assume this is just going to continue until we see some direction break. So this is all I'm seeing for now on SPY, unfortunately. And I'm just going to be a very, very patient trader in the process, because one lesson I learned from trading in my experience is to be very patient. Okay, you want to be as patient as possible during different plays. You also want to be able to execute at the right time. So that doesn't mean like just wait forever. I'm not saying to wait forever. You want to wait and see if we get a break in either direction, and we'll see what that leads to. Right now we're indecisive, so we'll just wait and see. But I do favor that there's going to be some downside in the future. I think that's going to happen soon. It's just that we're not getting confirmation of it starting just yet. Now, the QQQ is a different story because we have a potential bearish setup. As I called out earlier, we have a possible head and shoulders like pattern as we got this rejection of 391. This suggests that the QQQ could be retracing again towards 388. If that fails us, watch 386.5. And then if that fails us, we have 383 and beyond. But with this head and shoulders like pattern, this could potentially lead to some downside. I just want to call that out on the QQQ. And this could be dictated by Aapl. So you just want to be very careful. We have this imbalance down here, very close to this like 386 area. I think that if we lose our support at 388, the next level, it's going to likely get very close to 385, basically. So I could see like a short opportunity here. At least this pop right here was like the really good entry. But if anything, there's a head and shoulders. This looks more bearish than bullish. Our MACD's already turned. We also had a quadruple bearish divergence on the QQQ. So this chart's looking bearish. I favor the bearish side a bit more, and I think that we're more likely to see some downside. So watch 388 and see some downside from there if we end up getting the break. Now let's talk about Tesla. I know I kind of skipped over Tesla for a second. I'm sorry about that. Tesla, to me, it looks like it's going to be range trading just like SPY for a bit, but it has some bullish potential on like the market, and that's because of the Cybertruck event. So we had this channel historically, and you could see we're sort of like respecting this, not perfectly, but I really noticed this imbalance up here. You could see it wants to go higher to 242. It's trying to push higher. It's just that it had a hard time because of the market. Maybe there were other factors, but I think that by Wednesday or Thursday, we might see Tesla all the way up there. I think it's going to outperform the market a bit. And in order for us to see that move, you want to see it break 238, get out of the 238s, and we're likely going to see 242 shortly after. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose around 232. If it loses that, it's going to come down to 230 and we could start sinking. What do I think Tesla's going to do? I think as of right now, we're kind of shopping between 238 and about 232, but more towards like 235 because we saw more volatility here for the last 2 days. So we're spending most of our time between 235 and 238, but sometimes we could drop a little lower to like 232 and then bounce back up. So we're basically flats like a pancake like spike, going back and forth between supply and demand. I think it may continue to do so, but I'm anticipating that later on, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's Wednesday, I don't know exactly when. I think it's going to try to break 238. I think that Tesla's going to make its way back into this channel. I think it's going to try to fill this imbalance towards 242, possibly before the Cybertruck event. That's the direction I'm leaning in, and I think that that's still very probable for a bullish setup. So I'm leaning a bit more in favor of bulls, but just to be safe, we have to wait and see what the Cybertruck event. We have to see what the market causes. The market could act as an anchor for Tesla. I've been saying that many times, but right now, I mean, Tesla has some more potential than SPY for upside, for example. Uh, if you look at Apple stock, okay, Apple had this resistance trend line. We actually broke above it. Then we rejected. Now it's going to depend on how we end up shopping around this 190 area because there's a bullish and bearish case. The bulls are going to argue that we have like an inverse head and shoulders here, and Apple's going to break out to the upside. The bears are going to argue that wait a minute, we're actually looking bearish because you could argue this is looking like a slanted head and shoulders that's forming. And also, we made a lower high. We didn't actually get above 191. So, it's very mixed, but I would say, if anything, it's looking a little weaker. So, I do favor the bearish side a little bit more, especially when you look at those other like ETFs. So, I say that because this looks like a possible slanted head and shoulders, and the 4 hours looking a bit more bearish. To be bullish on Apple, you want to see it break and hold above 191. If Apple could do that, it could push higher. If we fail to break 191, we're going to likely sink back down towards 188. That's a target I have, and I think that the odds favor that because this thing is looking a little bit weaker. So I think Apple might come down to 188 soon. But just to be safe, let's see if it ends up losing like 189. I think the odds favor the downside, so we'll be watching that very carefully. On Nvidia, Nvidia is showing some life, and it's actually kind of mixed right now because I think what's going to happen is we're going to see this thing sink a bit, and then we're going to be watching to see, is this an inverse head and shoulders, or are we about to collapse? So Nvidia could do something like this where it comes back down very close to like the high 470s. We'll be watching 475.5 to like 477. Um, if we are bullish, okay, Nvidia needs to bounce right here, and this could be like an inverse head and shoulders. We have like a left shoulder here, the head, and Nvidia could try to make its way up. That's the bullish case. If we're bearish, if you want to be bearish, because the market's very indecisive, I can't tell you with 100% certainty. You want to see something like this, a failed bounce, and you want to see it lose support right over here, right over here. You want to lose this low that we made on today during the pre-market. If we lose the low and we end up breaking below 474, I'm going to be bearish. I think it's going to come down to at least 468. So it all depends on if we get that break or not. I'm anticipating something like this. It doesn't have to be like perfect. It could bounce even like at a higher level, but we'll see if this is an inverse head and shoulders or not. The QQQ looks bearish. We'll see if Nvidia is going to be the thing behind that bearish move, if Nvidia breaks down, or if Nvidia gets a bounce. It all depends on this test. I'll have to see this tomorrow morning to determine if it's going to bounce or not. So we'll have to just wait and see. But this is what I'm seeing for Nvidia. Watch this test right here. It's going to probably retrace a little bit more, and we'll see if it bounces. Now, even if it does bounce a bit, I'm not going to truly turn bullish until we see it break and hold 485 at least. It needs to get above this resistance here to turn bullish. As of right now, it has not done that. So watch the levels I have displayed right here, and just know that Nvidia is going to have a big test coming. With that said, I think I went over the main five. Let's just go over a couple of others real quick. Looking at SoFi, got a small little bounce on it, right? We got a little bounce on SoFi looking quite decent. This looks bullish. I think we might try to get very close to 7.43 and then possibly reject, because we tend to reject off our 200 EMA on the 4 hour. So I can see a little bit more upside than a rejection as being a very probable outcome. On the IWM, or the Russell 2000, I would say that we're very flat, like a pancake. There's just nothing going on. This is resembling Kansas, completely flat. If we lose, okay, 177, I turn more bearish. I think 176.6 is going to be tested. Yeah, we'd have to lose both of those levels, 177 to 176.6, to come down to 174. If you want to be bullish, you want to see this thing break 180, it's going to be pushing for 181. I'm sorry, 182. Right now, what has this been doing for the last few days? Back and forth and back and forth. There's no direction. It's completely flat. So we'll just be waiting to see which way it breaks. We'll just be very patient, at least for now. For Microsoft, it's very flat right now, but it's continuing to develop its bearish divergence. So we're still on an uptrend technically. It could continue to uptrend, but it's getting weaker. And this bearish divergence is just getting stronger and stronger, which suggests it's going to see some downside. So could this pop a bit more? Sure, it could. We have some tight resistance at 380. Maybe we retest 380 then reject, or just rejects from here. But I'm anticipating some downside on Microsoft because of how strong this bearish divergence is. It's continuing to develop the higher it goes. Now, could we go a little higher? Yes, it can. But we need to see this thing first off lose the 20 EMA at 376. If we lose that, 372 is next. I think it might pop a bit higher and then eventually drop soon, or it might drop from here. It all depends on if we end up losing the 20 EMA, which I think is going to happen eventually. On AMD, we're completely flat. It's not really doing anything quite yet. There was a bearish divergence that's been established, but there's like no clear direction just yet. Uh, we have 124 as resistance, 125 above that basically. For support, I'm going to be watching 121.6. If we end up losing that, I'm going to be retracing towards 119. So as of right now, we're completely flat, not really doing anything. So I don't really see anything happening thus far. And it looks like it's just range trading. So see which way it breaks. If we lose 121, we're bearish. If we manage to break above 124, we could turn a little bullish, try to retest 125. We're completely stuck right now. There's no direction that's clear. So we just have to wait and see on this. The VIX, however, is looking, in my opinion, it's very oversold. We have a bullish divergence on the MACD, but not really on the RSI. And every time the VIX tends to hit like around the 12s, we tend to see it pop quite quickly to at least 13 plus. So I think the VIX is going to pop soon, and that makes me favor like some downside for the markets. But there's no confirmation yet of the VIX bouncing. We had a slight green day, but it was very, very flat. And we're at the lowest level we've seen on the VIX in, actually, it's been years since we saw the VIX this low. So it's the lowest level we've seen. Typically, when it's in the 12s, it tends to bounce. So we're going to be waiting to see if that ends up being the case. There's a very, very good chance that happening after how much it's sold off for the past couple of weeks. We're going to be looking for that. On the SQQQ, this is looking, once again, kind of flat, bit of potential liquidity grab up here. We have a gap to fill up around 17.4. We'll see if this bounces. I have a feeling it's going to bounce soon, maybe within the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then this could dictate, a sell-off in the QQQ. As of right now, there's no sign of a nice bounce yet, though. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. The dollar is continuing to look weak. We're continuing to approach 103. We have some support right over there. If you look back at the daily time frame, this thing it hit 99 basically in the past. We have some support around this 102 area. Also, like this previous resistance becoming support around 102.8. So I'm going to be watching 103 and 102.8. Should try to bounce there, but there's no sign of a bounce yet. So I'm just going to be patient, at least for the time being. The dollar is still looking a little weak, however. Coinbase is continuing to rip to the upsides, up another 3%, which is very awesome. This was actually stronger than what I was expecting. I was talking about resistance at 117, but it managed to break. And even though it's breaking out, we have a bearish divergence starting to develop, but there's no sign of it slowing down quite yet. So I'm going to zoom out and go to the weekly. I think the weekly is going to be a very important time frame on this. And you can see on the weekly time frame, got a very, very nice breakout. It still looks bullish. There's no sign of it breaking down yet. So the next level is going to be 125, basically, if it just keeps going. We'll see if it rejects here, but historically it tends to not reject around here, so Coinbase could remain strong for some time. There's no sign of it breaking down yet, as it managed to break 117, which is the previous resistance. Right now, Google is looking kind of flat, it's like a pancake, very, very flat. Nothing is going on with Google, completely stuck for now. If we're bearish, you want to see this thing lose 137. If we're bullish, you want to see it break above 140. It looks to me personally like this bearish divergence will play out. We're going to see it come down to like 134.5 eventually. As of right now, it's choppy, very sideways. I think it's going to remain kind of sideways for now between 137, like 139, like around that range. And I don't really expect much to happen, at least for the time being. So we'll be waiting for that. For Amazon right now has a bearish divergence. And with that developing, I think that Amazon might just, it's going to be testing 150. If we break 150, we could be looking for 152. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 146 and come down to 144.5. We're very flat, a little in the green, but very flat for the most part. So we'll see if we get some kind of sell off or not. We'll be watching to see how it goes. As far as Meta goes, if you look at Meta, the 4-hour has the 50 EMA right here. If we lose the 50 EMA at 334, I anticipate it's going to sell off towards 330. There's a bearish divergence on Meta right now, looking a little bit weak, But watch this support. Do we hold the 50 EMA? Do we hold 334? Or do we lose this to sell off more? We'll be watching that. It's looking a bit more bearish, but just to be safe, we'll see if that support holds. All right, guys, so we'll be watching Meta. We'll be watching all these different tickers. Once again, I can't truly give you guys the most accurate forecast on SPY because it's so indecisive. We just have to wait and see which way it breaks. It's completely stuck between supply and demand. So just be patient. We'll see how it goes. And I'll be back tomorrow to talk more about these markets. All right, guys, thank you for listening. Don't forget that Tesla has some potential as well, as it looks relatively stronger than the market, especially approaching the Cybertruck event. So there could be more upside coming to it, but watch resistance, see if it can break 238. All right, that's it for now. Have a great day, guys. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks again, and peace out.